All right. Well, the first event of 2024 is in the books. Blake O'Rulian alongside Fierce FC COO and matchmaker Zach Partridge with us. And Zach, this is an immediate reaction podcast, and people want to hear how we are feeling. And I'm not going to lie, for me at least, it was a very interesting, kind of peculiar night. Your thoughts about Fierce FC 29?
Yeah, I mean, there was moments for sure, and for the people that got their hand raised, they're good moments, but there was just for an event, usually there's a natural climax to the event, and there's we had a great crowd there tonight. They were really energetic and enthusiastic, but there just wasn't that moment that just like made them pop in the way. But I mean, there were some good moments. Don't get me wrong, but it just there was just a lot of anticlimactic finishes, and then there was just a lot of confusion with some of the finishes, and so just the energy was just kind of just not what we're used to. But
Well, speaking of it, the energy was certainly off on this one. Kenny Bradfield and Michael Pfeiffer. Pfeiffer getting to some and to a lot, a controversial split decision win, but also he did land a lot of damage opposite Kenny Bradfield.
So let me, I had it 1-1 going into the third, and I walked into the cage after, and Pfeiffer was very upset, and I said, dude, there's a good chance you won that fight. So for the people listening, watch the fight at home, I saw comments, I saw things. You've got to understand, judging criteria is based off, first and foremost, effective striking and effective grappling. That is the first tier that they're taught to judge rounds off of. Getting a takedown in the first 30 seconds of a round, sitting in somebody's guard and not doing any damage and not threatening submissions, that is not effective grappling. Mike did not have to do a ton, as we saw, but he throughout the round more effectively was striking than Kenny was effective grappling. Holding somebody down, just laying in somebody's guard is not effective grappling. That is stalling. And honestly, I would have liked to see it stood up. But it wasn't because of how active Mike was trying to be from the bottom. And especially in the second and third round, he landed some significant strikes. I mean, we laughed about it, but Kevin Holland-esque against Jacare got a knockout from it. In the aftermath, look, when you see some of those decisions, sometimes you can just look at the two fighters and you know who won the fight. Kenny Bradfield, having a hard time stand up, was leaning on his coaches, went into the back and was evaluated for concussions, had bruises all over his ear and his face from the damage that Mike did. He looked like a concussed fighter to me. That's a guy who lost versus a guy who had some scratches on his back from being on his back the whole time. I mean, so say what you will. It was not the most entertaining fight in the world. There's definitely a lot of things that Mike's going to have to work on. From what it sounds like, Kenny said that was a one-and-done bucket list thing for him. So hats off to him. I hope he enjoyed his moment in his 9 minutes in the cage. For Mike, I thought that was it was a good learning lesson. He was active from the bottom, and that's 2 fights now where he spent a majority off of his back. Showed some growth, got the win this time. Controversial or not, I thought the judges did their job, and that was good judging, despite what people may think. If you go off the criteria, it was good judging. Go off who won the fight. Kenny was the more beat-up fighter at the end of the fight. I thought he won the fight.
Michael Pfeiffer moves to 1-1. And then we move over to this lightweight bout between Jace Coons and Tate Martin. Tate Martin looked great in that bout, but I got to say, Jace Coons has leveled up a lot too, Zach.
Yeah, and I went to Jace's corner in the cage after, and I said, you know what I love about Jace is every single fight he's getting better. And Tate's just getting started, and I think we're going to see him really active with Fierce over, this year and following. He wants to rock and roll, and I love that. But man, Jace, like, he is getting better. He showed advances in his striking. His grappling was, he's getting better, and I just hope that he just sticks with it. And, I would love to see him on a future Fierce card in Utah, or, maybe when we come back to Idaho, maybe he'll want to be there. He's a fan favorite. Everybody loves him. Obviously a great guy in the community, and he's somebody I look forward to watching fight.
One of the nicest guys, and thank you so much again for getting in your medicals on time. That was awesome. All right, one of the big emphatic wins of the night. I got this one starred. Taylor Mafileo, an incredible win over Jonathan Riley, back after 4 years away, and gets it done in nearly one punch.
Taylor, long time off. I remember watching his fights closely in his first two fights at Stillfist, and wondering at that point 4 years ago if that was somebody I was going to have to fight one day. So I've always watched him closely. Man, he's leveled up a lot. His striking is way cleaner than it's been. He showed a lot of power puncher. He went in there and caused damage, and I just don't think Jonathan Riley was totally ready for the physicality that Taylor brought. He's a young man, and Taylor looked like a grown man, in there. And for everybody, that wanted the emphatic finish, the ref was, they're amateurs. He's trying to, get them to get their fight experience, but not take them unnecessary damage. I agree with Taylor. His post-fight interview, he said, that ref saved him from probably a trip to the hospital. Jonathan thanked the ref for stopping it when he did. So, it's pretty hard to criticize the ref too much. People need to realize the ref's closer to them than anybody else. He can see their eyes when nobody else can. And when you start seeing eyes roll back and things like that, and his knees buckled and eyes rolling back, body language. Was it one punch too early? Maybe. But one punch too late could send somebody to the hospital. These are amateurs. It might have been the difference of a mild concussion to a severe one. It's easy to, armchair quarterback the ref. Taylor looked dominant, and, it could be really interesting to see him kind of get rocking and rolling in a shallow 185 division.
Yeah, just talking about the optics, you and I are both obviously cage side. I saw it was a very, very reasonable stoppage for when it happened. Jonathan Riley, Taylor Mafileo, and like you mentioned, the age difference, that was the largest age differential on the card. Taylor Mafileo, 33, Jonathan Riley, only 20 years of age. Hopefully we see him again. All right, let's move over to this other incredible striking performance. Marco Sanchez has got those guys throwing very, very well. But this one, another controversial one. A little bit of a head scratcher here, but also there was merit to it. Just kind of a, whichever side of the fence you lean on. Chris Ventura, Dustin Ireland, a no contest. Chris Ventura did land a lot, but unable to because of an illegal knee to the face.
Well, it's one of those things where it's like, I think Chris, I'll say this. First and foremost, I will applaud both the competitors because they were both just, it is what it is. While Chris's corner was starting to kind of get heightened about the situation of it possibly being a no contest, Chris was the one that was like, no, it's all good, it's all good. And Dustin, I went over to him and he goes, it just is what it is. If they give it me as a loss, it's a loss. If it's a no contest, it's a no contest. It is what it is. Like, he was fully accepting of the result. And I loved seeing that between the two fighters. And I was in there. My role is not to influence anything, but I was just encouraging him, before you make the call, please go watch the replay so you're comfortable with your decision, because you could tell he was pretty uncomfortable with the whole situation. He went to the replay. He didn't feel like it was conclusive enough to overturn what he saw. Again, he made a judgment call in that moment. He thought he saw the knee come up and hit the chin. I believe from the replays that I saw that I watched it hit his chest and slide up to the chin, probably not. So, a no contest is probably fair. It wasn't Chris didn't get a DQ loss on his record. He got a no contest. And as an amateur, I mean, I don't say this because, I mean, I've had 8 amateur fights and they matter, and I've had a draw that I didn't agree with and whatever. But at the end of the day, these are guys that want to go pro, both of them. Doesn't matter. They got the cage time. The result was the result. It would have ended either in a no contest or a knockout. The fight shouldn't have been extended from that point. Chris didn't throw the shot at the chin. He threw it at the body. He just threw it too high. Like, it's a good learning experience for everybody. They both agreed to run it back. So who knows? We might see that one in Salt Lake City in the coming months. Who knows?
That would be a ton of fun. All right, John Smith versus Nate Reinhardt. John Smith brought the fight here today, Zach. I mean, I was really impressed with how he performed. Nate Reinhardt, however, just looks like a kid who continues to level up, and he has really found his style of fighting, it seems like.
John told me he took his training seriously. I don't know what that means. I don't know where he's training at, but I believe him because he looked better. And, hats off to him. People have to understand he has a very upside-down amateur record, but he fights anybody. He fought David Kim when nobody wanted to fight him. Nate Reinhardt's had a hard time getting opponents. Didn't hesitate to say yes. But Nate Reinhardt, he's, like you said, he's come into his own. He's had a bunch of canceled fights. Sucks. Felt for him. Super excited we could get him on this card. Did a great job tonight. Came out, executed, stayed composed. John's gritty. He's tough. He's been in a lot of fights. Whether you like it or not, and his record or not, 10 fights is a lot of experience. That was his 11th amateur fight. That's a lot of experience. A lot of them are short notice, different weight classes, up, down, whatever. He truly is a fight anybody, anywhere, anytime guy. I will say this about John Smith. I believe that if he can get into a good camp with a good team, and we talked about him potentially moving to Utah and joining a gym there. If he can do those things, I truly believe he could be a guy that could get a couple more amateur fights, get a couple of wins potentially, and when he decides that he wants to go pro, because he does, he's somebody that could really surprise people in his pro career because he's tough, he's game, he has a good chin. He just has to put some things together, and he's a great dude. But, Nate looks like he's ready to go on a run.
Cannot wait to see what the rest of these two careers look like. All right, Preston Carlson and Michael Lazalde. Kind of a wild, exchange-filled bout, Zach. Preston Carlson comes out on top, and Preston Carlson just proved his technicality was a little bit better.
Yeah, and, that was probably the best fight of the prelims overall. Like, it was very entertaining, back and forth. Lazalde was throwing a lot of wild shots, big power puncher, right? Preston, I think one thing that Preston could be excited for is, like, he made some mistakes, definitely, that I saw in his techniques, but he got the win, so he best of both worlds. He can learn and grow, and then, and he got his hand raised, and he's 2-0 at 155, and now that's going to open up some really, really fun matchups in the future for him. I was really impressed with his power. He was smooth, but it seems like when he landed, it was hurting Michael. And he was just very composed, and for a young man to stay that composed kind of in that firefight, very impressive win. Very impressive. And Lazalde, me personally, I think 145 probably will suit him better in the long run.
Dietrich Jessup ends up handing Christian Cortez his first loss, Zach. Another weird one, oddly anticlimactic, but Dietrich Jessup gets it done, and he's able to finish him via TKO.
Yeah, I think that So Christian told me that when he went for that throw, that takedown on the cage, he felt something pop in his rib. And he tried to fight through it. And he was holding on to Dietrich. And Dietrich started landing some heavy, power shots, ground and pound. And then when Dietrich threw one to the body, I believe, that was enough for Christian. And he tapped to strikes there. And, You know, I mean, injuries happen in this game. It's part of fighting. Like, did his job, and I mean, you want to, Christian. I applaud him, and I say good on him. He had some stuff going on in his life. He pulled out on weigh-in day, couldn't make the weight. His body shut down on him. Learning experience when they were supposed to fight in September. Wanted to make the fight up to Fierce and to Dietrich. Invited him to his hometown. Was on point, communicative, got his medicals in. He was good to go. Made weight, looked good. And for Dietrich Jessup to come into enemy territory after coming off of a loss in a fight that I believe that he was a favorite. This fight, he was probably the underdog and comes and gets a big win. Looked really, really good. And it's not, especially a young fighter like Dietrich and as an amateur, you're always curious after that first loss where their confidence is at. Man, he looked confident. He got punched, didn't waver. He listened to his corner, did a lot of right things. His wrestling has come along. He didn't look like, all of his fights had always ended with guillotines and submissions. He looked like he's evolving to a more complete fighter. Not that he wasn't before, he was, but you could just see his confidence is everywhere. Like, hats off to Dietrich. Future is bright. He could be, paying close attention to that flyweight title fight in 2 weeks. And, I think he's put himself in a position for either maybe another number one contender type fight, or maybe just getting the nod depending on who wins that fight and what that's going to look like.
Watching Dietrich, I was almost having flashbacks of how he fought Tony Garcia last January, a year ago at this time. And against a tougher opponent, I love Tony, but against a tougher opponent in Christian Cortez, able to weather all the storms that Christian threw at him and come out on top. Any previous injuries that you were notified about after the fact with Christian, like any rib injury prior?
Nope. He just said he felt a pop on the throw, and when he took him down, and he had a really nice takedown on Dietrich, and you could kind of see it, right? Dietrich kind of like changed the position. Probably a little easier than he should have been able to. And I think that's one, Dietrich's abilities and skills, but two, Christian is a game and very good fighter. I've seen him fight many times before. Former Steel Fist 125 champ. Like, he's a champion. Like, he was hurt. He was hurting, and he was really disappointed that feels like probably he didn't lose, more felt like his body failed him, So I hope him a speedy recovery. He's absolutely welcome back at Fierce anytime, but Dietrich's he's a problem.
A lot of fun at that one. All right, Viliami Kulu facing off against Spencer Woodland in the cruiserweight title bout. Viliami Kulu gets it done in quick fashion. I will have to look it up, but most likely the fastest finish in Fierce FC title fight history.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Spencer did I thought it was very smart for him to shoot early. I think it's hard with Vili, right? He's so big and strong and quick. Spencer just shot from too far away. Probably should, if he could have done a couple things to set up the shot first, and I think that's something he'd tell you too. But you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. He wanted a belt. He wanted to fight for a belt. Kulu, Kulu's there. Like, just kind of is what it is. Might sound like that was a one and done type thing for a cruiserweight title fight. With Kulu going pro now, apparently that's his plan. Which look forward to watching him as a pro. He's a beast. Be interested to see what's next for Spencer, but I just applaud Spencer for shooting a shot, and he went in there, and Kulu's hands are crisp, and when he landed that straight right, that was the beginning of the end. And anybody that says that fight was finished too quick, again, Spencer's a cop. He's a husband. Like, he was okay after. If the ref lets it go, he might not have been. So I'm grateful like that. I'm happy he can go to work next week, and like it's an amateur title, but like I was good with that. I know some fans it sounded like weren't, but I was good with that.
Viliami Kulu, I talked to him after, and I said, so for sure pro, and he said, yeah, pro. That's where I'm going. So
well, he wanted the rematch with Shaler Ladd, and Shaler's not interested in it. Justifiably so. That's fine. That's his prerogative. No problem. But honestly, for Kulu, I don't really see much else for him. So, and I'm not going to speak for him too, but I know what he walks around at, and I know where his weight's at. I would guess his pro debut is at 185, and that I am pumped to watch him at 185 pounds because I think that's where his home will be.
All right, let's move over to the professional fights. Armandale Cameron getting the win over Kerry Latimer. Kerry Latimer, he really brought the fight as well. Similar to John Smith, it seemed like he was a heavy underdog coming in, but he brought the fight to Armandale Cameron.
Yeah, I mean, that was the best Kerry's looked, I felt like, in a couple of years. Short notice. I think his gas tank failed him a little bit. I asked him after, I'm like, you okay? And he said, yeah, I'm just tired. And that's okay. But, man, dude, Armandale is a stud and a wrestler. And Kerry took him down. And then when Kerry slipped out the back, he was going for submissions. And they were transitioning. And Kerry was finding himself in good positions in the transition. And he did some things that it was like, man, I'll tell you this. As a promotion, whoever wins, I'm there to watch good fights and guys compete, whatever. But, man, the moment was so close, and that crowd was ready to freak out if Kerry could have pulled that off. And we were just waiting. It was just like, oh, my, Kerry is very much in this fight. And, you know, I've praised Kerry a lot. I stand by everything I said. I'm not going to go into it again, but, you know, Armandale is a stud, and Kerry gave him a good run for his money tonight, but, you know, good for Armandale for getting back in the cage, getting to fight, and getting his hand raised. You know, congratulations to him and his team as well. But Kerry's a stud. We love him. I believe he'll be back in the Fierce Cage next time we're up here in Idaho again.
Syndicate MMA is going to be busy over the next 2 weeks as well. And Nasir Davis, Xiaoya as well is going to be making the walk. Armandale Cameron here in January. Lots coming out of Syndicate MMA. All right, our title fight that was a technical chess match to the highest degree. Zach, you talked about it before. Both of those guys are probably awaiting a call from a bigger show. It looked like it in there.
I mean, it was everything we hoped it would be, in my opinion. Back and forth, skill at the highest level. You saw patience, you saw urgency, you saw resilience. Mike got dropped in the first round. Yaz got hurt a couple times later. Mike controlled. Yaz defended well, and eventually, you know, the chess match won, and Michael Sire won that chess match and did his what did he call it? A dirty something.
I can't even remember.
It's a modified twister basically, which, you know, go look it up. It twists the spine and it's super painful and it sucks. And you know, I think Yaz, you know, he fancies himself a high level grappler, and I'm sure getting submitted was really tough. And man, I mean, it was like we saw Yaz get hurt in the Joel Haro fight and him able to rely on his grappling and him getting his hand raised through his grappling. In this fight, it was he hurt Michael on the feet, but then Michael hurt him on the feet, and then it was Michael that used his grappling to close the show. That was an incredible main event. I think the fans just really appreciated the back and forth. Got into the second round. It was a great fight, great chess match. I enjoyed that fight a lot, and just I thought it was two really high level guys playing high level stakes, and congratulations to Michael Sire, the new Fierce Bantamweight champion.
We cannot wait to see what the future holds for the champion. He mentioned that he does want to, you know, go to a bigger show, but the belt feels good. You got a couple people in mind in terms of who he might be facing if he chooses to return.
Well, of course, you have Joel Haro is fighting in 2 weeks. Lost to Yaz. Joel wants his belt back. I think he deserves a shot. If he can get his hand raised in 2 weeks here, I think he deserves a shot at getting his belt back. And I you know, that's an unreal fight. There's some logistics that could cause hiccups with that matchup, but at the same time, I mean, Michael Sire's what is that? 6-1?
6-1, 5 wins by submission, no decisions in his career, and 3 by rear naked choke, 1 by that twister.
I mean, I can't think of too many guys if the UFC needed somebody on short notice or whatever that he's got to be on that short list. Beating a guy like Yaz and and he's a finisher and he's exciting and he's well rounded and stuff. I mean, gosh, to me that's like 6-1. That's kind of it, right? Like he's there or maybe. I mean, yeah, I could definitely see him getting that phone call on to the UFC. I mean, Warrior Camp's put guys in the UFCs before. They're known and they're respected. But him and Joel could very easily happen if Joel gets his hand raised. And I don't like to look too far ahead. They could potentially fight at the Maverick Center in May-ish, springtime. And the winner of that could very well be getting prepared for a Dana White Contender Series fight in the fall.
What a show it was. January is in the books, and we are back in just 2 weeks at the Maverick Center. We got a lot of work to do. Zach Partridge, Monday is going to be busy for us.
Yes, sir. But this is what we do.
Cannot wait for it. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will see you all in just a couple of weeks.